Hello students, we're back on our segment on grammar. This is your tutor Elizabeth Marshall from iTTV. We welcome today two students. We welcome Maria again, and we have Kathy today to join us in our lesson on grammar. Punctuation marks. Punctuation marks are essential in communicating what you want to say clearly. Although they might be something that you've learned earlier on in your primary school, but you must remember to use them effectively. So this is a review of the full stop. You put the full stop at the end of a sentence. Logically, you do this to show that that is the end and a new sentence begins. Sometimes, after words that have been shortened or abbreviated, to show that it's an abbreviation, you have to put a full stop. Examples of short forms. For instance, when you want to use the word Sunday, or you want to write the word Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you do not want to repeat day, what you do is then to leave out the word day and use a full stop. Your example then is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Even for months, which is January, February, October, November and December, you do the same. Even when you need to address somebody as DR, doctor, you use DR and a full stop. And for the word department, you just use DEPT and a full stop. Increasingly, what people do is to try to leave out punctuation marks. But you have to be careful with that. If you're going to leave it out, for instance, in a letter, you must make sure that it is left out throughout the letter. You must be consistent. Sometimes you need to shorten people's first names to one letter followed by a full stop. Remember, people are very, very sensitive about names, and so you've got to get it correct. Examples of which are Robert John Smith to R full stop J full stop Smith. If it's an Asian name, for instance, Lin Wei Young to W Y Lin, which is W full stop Y full stop and then Lin. Now let's go to the exclamation mark. Students, I'm sure you use the exclamation mark often. Yes? In surprises. Yes? An exclamation mark after commas, interjections or words that show surprise or anger. People are often angry, people are often surprised. So when you read a text, how do you indicate to the reader that you are wanting to show surprise or anger? By the use of the exclamation mark. For instance, stop him. When the reader encounters the exclamation mark, the reader knows that he has to change the voice to show anger or surprise. Oh dear, you are fired. Quiet. What a surprise. All this cannot be read in a normal tone, so you need to show it by using an exclamation mark. Now the question mark. You know that we need a question mark after a question. But you need to make sure that you use the question mark correctly. Obviously, after a question mark, we will expect an answer. Examples of which are, do you know the answer to this sum? The answer should be yes or no or maybe. What's your name? Common enough question. Where did she study for her degree? Asking for information. Another question mark. A comma comes between nouns and noun phrases in a list. Take for example, Daniel enjoys tennis, badminton, skating and football. When there are activities and the activities come together, we need to use a comma to differentiate between one activity and the other. For instance, here again, tennis, comma, badminton, comma, skating and football. It also tells the reader that the reader needs to pause. It also tells the reader that you need to pause when you encounter the comma, and that makes for better understanding, better communication. Take another example. This house has a living room, 3 bedrooms, a study room, a small kitchen and 2 bathrooms. When I read, you notice that I'm pausing. Let's take away the pauses and see how that will be. Quite comical, I tell you. This house has a living room, 3 bathrooms, a study, a small kitchen and 2 bathrooms. That's too quick and the listener might not be able to get or understand what you're saying. So again, what you need to do is to pause at a comma. This house has a living room, 3 bedrooms, a study room, a small kitchen and 2 bathrooms. You might ask me then, students, what is the difference between a full stop and a comma? What are they? What do you do when it is a full stop? The clue is from the word stop. Is it not? So you need to stop a little longer when it's a full stop. When it's a pause, when it's a comma, you pause. And so is that a shorter stop or a longer stop? When you pause for a short while. You do not stop completely. All right? Although it might seem like a very, very small difference, it is a difference nonetheless. And you will, students, be marked as wrong if you use a comma instead of a full stop and vice versa. Common short forms. Let's look at the word I am. Normally, when do you use short forms? When we did our lesson on formal letters and informal letters, I did tell you when you can use a short form and when you can't. When you are speaking to people in an informal setting, you are allowed to use short forms. But when you're writing a letter to your employer, you're writing a letter to your principal, then you're supposed to use I am, not the short form. All right? Now I'm telling you, now for the word I am, you would probably just say I am. All right? And look at the punctuation. It's I apostrophe am, telling you that a letter has been left out. Telling you that a letter has been left out. In this case, the letter A has been left out. Let's look at more. I've. Students tend not to want to use these because they're uncomfortable. Basically, it's simple. Just pronounce it. I've. That's it. I apostrophe V-E. I've. I'll go to the market. Instead of I will go to the market, you use the short form I'll. A little bit tricky there because it's an I apostrophe LL. Maybe not so easy on the tongue, but with practice, you'll be able to say it correctly. It's I'll. I'd. We've been away for a long time. We have been away for a long time. The apostrophe tells you that certain letters have been left out. Not wrong, but certain letters have been left out. Will. You are. You're going to get a scolding for doing this. Instead of saying you are going to get a scolding, you say you are. You'll. The word you'll, you will. Instead of you will, you say you'll. You'd. Again, for the same one, they are. They're expected at the meeting shortly. They are. Instead of they are, you say they are. They have. They have, we say they've. They'll. Remember, if you are listening to somebody speaking in this way, you might confuse the words with something else. So how do you know? You must remember to listen to the next word. Remember to listen to the next word. They'll be at the party. Be at the party tells you exactly what the word is. They'll. Did. Here's. Here is. You use the word Here is in a formal setting, here's if you want to shorten that. When we become fluent language users, we tend to do this. We tend to use more short forms as we become more confident. What's instead of what is, use the word what's. Whose, who is, whose. Who'd, who had. Where's, where's the book, where's. Isn't that easy when you don't always have to write the I in? All right, in this case, W-H-E-R-E apostrophe S, the apostrophe stands for the I. That's for that is. That'll for that will. Now, just as all of this seems to be positive, we come to this area where you use the contractions or short forms for negative contractions, for saying things that are in the negative. I have here for you what the actual word is or what the actual phrase is, and then the short form. For are not, aren't. Is not, isn't. Was not, wasn't. Were not, weren't. Have not, haven't. I haven't heard from them for a long time. Instead of I have not heard from them for a long time, you say I haven't, I haven't. Isn't that easier on the tongue? It is easier on the tongue. Has not, hasn't. Had not, hadn't. Do not, don't. This is familiar. We've used this all the time, don't. But one wonders why you use certain words often and you don't the others. Does not, doesn't. Does not, doesn't. Did not, didn't. You use did not to show something in the past tense. Now, many of us tend to mistake this. Instead of saying does not, we might say do not. Will not, won't. Will not, won't. She will not go to the market today. She won't go to the market today. Would not, wouldn't. Would not, wouldn't. Shall not, shan't. Sometimes we hardly hear the word shan't. She won't be at the market. She shan't be at the market. She shall not be at the market. Should not, shouldn't. Cannot, can't. Common enough, you have used the word cannot and you have used the word can't. Remember again, in a setting when it's very familiar and you've used it many times, do not think it is all right to use it in a formal setting. You cannot use that word can't in a formal letter. Again, do not write it or do not use it in a letter you're writing to your principal or your teacher, because it is a short form. Could not or couldn't. In which context, students, if you were asked to write, in which context then would you use these contractions? Would it be in a dialogue or would it be in an informal letter? What do you think? Maria, what do you think? Would you be able to write or use short forms in an informal letter, a letter that you're writing to your friend? Would you be? Yes, you would use it when you're writing to a relative or a friend. Yes. But would you, Kathy, would you use it when you were writing to your teacher, you think?
No.
No, because the relationship between you and your teacher might be cordial, but it's still formal. It is formal, so you will have to follow the conventions of a formal letter, which would mean that you cannot use short forms in those instances. Dare not, daren't. All right? Dare not, daren't. Remember that, students, because I hardly hear students or people using dare not, daren't. They never use that short form. For the word must not, it is mustn't, common enough. And finally, need not, needn't. That brings us to the end of our lesson on grammar. So students, now I hope you pay a little more attention to your full stops, abbreviations, comma, exclamation mark. Thank you students for joining me in this lesson. And this is your tutor Elizabeth Marshall saying goodbye from ITTV.